Good morning. Our hand today is going to be Jack 10 of spades. We folds to us. We open raise. We are playing seven-handed. I don't like playing short-handed, but I don't like even playing six max. But we're going to have to review these. So we're six-handed at a full or seven-handed at a full ring table. This is 25 NL. We open raise and we get a call. So my open raise is going to be something fairly wide. We've got some tight players here. I'm just going to attack here with a wider range. Where this is our fourth hand at the table, so when we look at players, we do have some hands, quite a few hands with them. Luce's player, incidentally, is the big blind. He's playing 26-7. If we look at his VPIP, he plays 17% in the big blind. That seems a little tight. 13% called from the big blinds. If we look at 3-bet stat, overall it's about 4%, so 6 out of 157 hands. He's 3-bet twice from a big blind. We also have hands on him, so we've got limp call under the gun versus early position ISO with 10-7 diamonds. We've got called raise first in from MP on button with sixes. So, and then he calls a bet on an 8-high flop, calls a C bet. Donks, top pair, second kicker. Called 2 bets from blinds. You can see pocket pairs, queens and sevens. You've got some suited aces. You've got suited kings. You've got it goes down to king 2. You've got suited queen, king, queen, and queen jack. So I'm going to say suited Broadway. And the reason I say all suited Broadway is because you've got king 10 and king jack off on here. So if he's playing king 10 and king jack, he's also playing the suited varieties, and probably also playing then the queen jack, queen 10, jack 10. So we're going to go with this range 22%, which is probably okay. We see a flop of jack 3-2, so we do connect with top pair. Nothing's really out there in terms of draws. You've got the wheel draw, that's about it. We have his fold to c-bet stat when he's out of positions, 47%, in position, 78%. We already know it seems like he's going to call c-bet if he has a pair. So if we look at, pair plus, we're looking at 42%. So he's going to be folding over 50% of the time. I think this is a hand that exploitatively we're going to attack. We're going to attack probably more often than what GTO should recommend. If we just kind of break down what I think GTO would recommend, I think GTO would say, bet your open ender, bet your gut shot. We're going to be having some of these 2-card backdoor flush draws, probably not all of them because that's going to add a whole lot of hands. But I think hands like we already have, like 5-4, like some of these smaller ones, and then probably some of these other hands that are like around the jacks, where we do have some straight potential depending on the turn. That's probably up. I mean, that's up to 20%. And then when you look at our value range, that's basically overpair plus, and then we're going to add some like top pair hands too. So I think it kind of makes sense to try to go for maybe like ace jack. Whoops, change colors. Maybe like ace jack, king jack. Still a little hot, still a little high. So maybe not all of these, but I think this is probably what GTO would recommend. We'd probably be going on the smaller side. We'll see. But exploitatively, I think we are betting all of our top pair. I think we're going to be betting all of these pocket pair lower than the top pair hands. Obviously, some of them are going to be draws. Some of them are going to be a little bit of value. So 10s and 9s. I think we're trying to get some folds. We're going to probably need 2 bets to get rid of those. We could also, if we think he's going to be calling with any pair, we could also check. But I think if we check, it makes him more likely to continue calling with those pairs, at least on the turn. So I kind of think any of those pairs. I think at this point we're going to probably be doing all of our 2-card backdoor straight draw, probably all of our overcards here. So I think exploitatively we're going something like this. And then we assume he's going to be calling this. So let's check this out. I bet half pot. Yeah, if we know he's going to call with a pair, then probably fold. I'd probably say we're going to go up to half to 2/3. Try to get more money in there because we do think that he's going to call with one of these under pairs. He's going to call with maybe 4-5 or 5-6, ace-4, ace-5. He'll call now, get that money in now, and then probably fold on the turn. So possibly raise a little bit larger to take advantage of that call. King of diamonds comes out on the turn. I'm going to assume he's going to probably be checking to us again. I assume that he's going to be checking everything. It's back to us now. Now again, he's already called once. This is actually a pretty good card for us. So we're going to really kind of break down some of our bluffs here. We've improved our flush draw. So we're going to continue betting those. We're going to continue betting our open ender. We're going to continue betting our gut shot. So we're at 27%. And then with that king, we're betting, our top pair here. I think queens and jacks we could probably hold off on now. We're probably still good if we have queens. Probably still good if we have jacks. I think we probably check with those because if he checks the river, we can always go for a little bit of thin value with the queens and the jacks. That might entice a jack with a weaker kicker or 10s or 9s or 8s to call one more time on the river, where if we bet him now, we're probably getting him to fold. So I think probably we're slowing down on our bets because we had so many weaker hands on our bet. So I'm going to say 53%. Half pot's probably good. If we did larger, like 2/3 on the flop, you can go half pot. That kind of makes a little bit of sense. We're trying to encourage a little bit more calls when we have our king, when we hit our 2-pair. And yet it's still larger size because we went 2/3. So I did half pot. I think that's going to be okay. Villain calls. What does he continue calling with at this point? So I think at this point I'm going to probably continue giving him middle pair. But I think this is going to be a situation where he could probably fold the pocket pair less than the second card. Maybe not all of them, but I think he can fold those. We're going to leave the flush draw here. So 57.3. That kind of sets us up for a check behind on the river with our hand, since he has quite a few of these middle pairs. 6 of clubs comes out. Yeah, the open-ended straight gets there. I would probably check behind with our hand. He checks. Would he lead at anything? Maybe. I think if he leads, he could possibly lead the straight. For us, I think we bet for value with our straight. We bet our sets. We bet our 2-pair. We bet our over pair. I think we bet our top pair, most of them. I think king, queen, ace, king, we go for some value. Just how much we go depends on what is he going to call. I do think he's going to call with all of the middle pair hands. So I guess if that's the case, if he calls with all of the jack X hands that he has in his range, then we're going to just go ahead and bet all of our top pair, because more than 50% of the time we're going to beat him when he calls. It's these middle pairs where we could probably go for some value with the ace jack, but then once you get to like queen jack, queen 10, it's probably better just to check behind. Weak pair. So we've got a lot of those, and now it comes down to nothing hands. I think we bluff. I think weak pairs we bluff, possibly ace high we bluff. It's a lot. We do have a lot of value, but we do have some check behinds with our mediocre hands. So what do? I check behind. I'm glad I checked behind. I show jack 2, he shows king 2, so he actually had 2-pair here, which was kind of at the top of his range. I do assume that he would have called with all of those middle pair hands. And I think he would have folded the turn with all those under pairs. So if he had a lot of those under pairs, I don't think I'm going to necessarily change my play on the river. However, on the river, I think maybe we could start betting like the queen jack if we think he's going to be calling those pairs. So let's check out what GTO says. So I was kind of taking an approach of more exploitative approach, saying that he had sixes and a called c-bet with an underpair on an 8-high board. So let's see what GTO says. So I've set it up. GTO checks initially, and then we're betting. And not too surprised. We're checking 54% of the time. As I said, this is, I think, GTO. There's not a huge number of draws on here, so he's not going to be betting a whole lot on this board. We've got, larger sizing and then half pot size. So the larger and the half pot sizing seems to be okay. I thought GTO would go a little bit smaller to try to entice it in, but I guess, we're more likely to hit kind of like a top pair hand, but villain could also hit a top pair hand. So let's see what kind of hands he's betting. So, if we look overall, we're betting sets, we're betting over pairs. Our top pairs now, we're not betting all of them. So we're doing like the ace jack and sometimes a king jack. And that's kind of what I was thinking when we start breaking it down as to what kind of draws we have. We have open ender, we've got the gut shot, we're betting those. And then we're occasionally betting some of the overcards. We're occasionally betting some of the 2-card backdoor flush draws. And those are like, those would be maybe like a king queen, king 10. I bet queen 10, queen 9. Some of those broadways where if we get another Broadway card, it kind of opens up a gut shot for us. We do have the small. Looks like we have some of these small pairs that we're betting. Middle pair, weak pair, like ace 3, ace 2. Those are being used as a bluff. Kind of along the same line. We have to find enough bluffs to balance the sets and over pairs. So we're using those weak and middle pairs. So let's say I do bet. And I guess we have, most of them have like 2 bet sizes, like a very small percentage for the small. It's not favored, but let's go for the larger sizing. Oh, hold on, back to the larger sizing. It looks like it favors the larger sizing overall, and occasionally it may be like trip jacks. We can go to half pot, ace 3 maybe. It looks like we're going to half pot, like when we have the ace 3 of hearts. But by and large, we're going for the larger bet. So larger bet here, he calls, and then we're getting the king of diamonds, and that was just gold for him. And then, so this is kind of the opposite. When we bet a lot of hands, when we c-bet a lot of hands, we're going to have to check. We're c-betting less on the turn. But when we don't c-bet a whole lot of hands, we tend to be betting more on the turn because our range is going to be a little bit stronger. Whereas the first time, our range was actually pretty weak on c-bet. And then we have a bunch of hands that are still going to be weak, and we need to check behind on those. So I'm not surprised that we're betting most of them. We're betting, pocket pair, less than the top card. We're betting our queens. We're betting our top pair plus. That's kind of what I was expecting. Our middle pair, though, ace jack, it looks like we're still betting. And then below that, it looks like we start getting checked. We have our flush draw that we're betting. We have our open and straight that we're betting, our gut shot. I think that was all what I was looking at, planning for. We have to balance some of these with our ace high hands, but those I think are our flush draws. We're not really betting a whole lot with our weak middle pair. So Jack 10, we're checking. I think we're checking a lot of those middle pocket pairs. So I think this kind of makes sense. So for our hand, probably should have checked according to GTO. I think initially our bet was okay. So Jack 10, we have backdoor flush draw. We've got top pair, backdoor flush draw. Bet's okay, and this does look like it's about half and half, maybe slightly favored. It is slightly favored for the half pot bet size. So he calls, checks us. Now we should check. I didn't. I bet, and he calls. He calls. So then once he checks behind, then we're betting our top pair, and we do have pocket pair less than the top card because I bet we assume he's going to be calling with his jacks. Yep. So as long as he calls with his jacks, we can get some value from those pocket pairs better than the jack, or pairs better than the jack. You can see that our middle pair hands, the jacks are checking. He doesn't have a whole lot of jacks, but checking, whereas queens, we're getting value from all of those jack X hands that call. So I kind of feel like I was about right on how to play it. I did adjust it to try to exploit the player, since I think he's calling with any pair on the flop and then probably checking behind on the turn. And I was right. He did call with any pair. He called with a 2. So let's see if he has, the call. Yeah, I mean, he's mostly calling with those hands, so I don't fault him there. We already had kind of some idea that he should be doing that. And then he just connected. So let's say like okay, so call, we bet. Obviously king 2 is definitely calling. King 3 is calling now with the top pair. Ace 3 is going to start having some of the calls, some folds. Ace 2 is going to have a lot of folds. So it is just kind of, again, what GTO would suggest. If you didn't improve, you're more than likely going to fold. Sometimes you will have to call. It's your percentages that you're going to have to meet, but mostly once you get those 2 bets, those low pairs, even though you have a good kicker, are starting to be a fold. So I think I'm okay with this hand, with how we played it. Let's go half pot, see if that changes anything. Still basically a check here is what we should be doing. I bet, he calls, he checks again, and we are again queens plus, typical. Now let's go back and say we played it everything up to this point, and now we check, and the 6 of club comes back. If villain bets, I think we're going to be calling with our jack, and that is, if he bets half pot, we're calling with our jack. We're protecting against it. We're raising our sets and our straight, okay, but we're calling with top pair hands less than our top pair. So queens, we're calling with our middle pair hands. We're calling with some of our weak pairs. I guess that kind of makes sense with the ace. If we think villain had something like a ace 3, ace 2. It's now going to attack. It would be, I think at 25 NL, we do probably have to call. At like a 10 NL or a 5 NL, probably not. I don't think a whole lot of players are going to be betting those ace 2, ace 3s in this spot after I check. What if he checks? What do? We just check behind again with the jack 10. I think it, and we're still betting with the queen, so it looks like if we going for the triple barrel, we're still betting like queens plus, so that under pair plus hands. Yeah, and then if we check the turn and we get to the river, we still bet those types of hands. So made some mistakes. Turn bet, obviously, made the mistake. I do think I was probably on the right track when we had our larger c-bet frequency. So we were c-betting 78%, and then once the king comes down, we're dropping it down to about 50. I think that's probably what we're looking for. Flip side is, this would be also reversed. So if we only c-bet 50% at the time on the flop, then on the turn we're probably barreling closer to 70-75%. So I think that's good. Bet sizing was off. My guess is the reason we go large is because we're likely to have a top pair or weaker hand, maybe, and we go for players that are likely to call with the underpairs, kind of, you could say, punish them. We're trying to maximize our EV is what we're trying to do. So hopefully you enjoy this hand. If you do, look tomorrow for another one.